quietly shouting, "Don't do." Yeah, we can't really hear you. actually hear you. Give us a second.
Hey guys, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear you now, Rishi.
Yep.
So, good morning, everyone. This is Mr. Rishi Rithik. He is the founder of Gigantrix Games. And today we'll be interviewing him. We have a bunch of questions to ask. And I hope a lot of you are guys also have a bunch of questions to ask to see like what it takes to be an artist and what it takes to start your own studio in Hyderabad. Rishi Rithik is basically one of our alumni. And so we can start with the questions. Well, yeah, I guess we can go on now. Okay.
Yep.
How's your day going, Mr. Abhishek?
It has been kind of hectic, but yeah, I am here now. Um, yeah, and I just wanted to give an introduction about myself as well before we start. So, and thank you for the introduction. But so my name is Rishi Rithik, and I am a graduate of Backstage Pass. I finished my art degree in 2021, and currently I have my own studio called Gigantrix Games. We primarily make casual and hyper casual games for mobile. And thank you guys for inviting me to this session. And I hope over the course of our discussion, we can share some information that can be helpful for other people as well.
Yeah, yeah, that was a great start. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have a bunch of questions that are prepared for you. So, should we jump right in?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, I will you take the first question. So, ever since I joined into Backstage Pass, and anyone I met, the first question for me would be, "What are your favorite games at the moment, and what are yours?"
Yeah. So I usually play games only with friends. Uh, Before I used to play a lot of games, but currently I don't know. I don't see the time or the current interest to play any single player or story based games. So I usually play Valorant and Paladins a lot. Um, and that is mainly because of the fact that there are so many of my friends who are playing it. And it is, for me, games are fun when you're playing with friends, at least PC games. So that is what I've been playing currently. But previously, I have been a big fan of Tycoon games, and you would see that in the games that our current studio also makes. We also make Tycoon games now, but I'm a big fan of Tycoon and business management games. So previously, some of my favorite games include Roller Coaster Tycoon and Planet Coaster, and many other Tycoon games. But these two are my favorites, and I'm also a big car fan. So Forza and Gran Turismo are very close to me. I used to have a PS2, and I used to play Gran Turismo 4 every day when I was a kid. And yeah, so currently Forza Horizon 3, I like it a lot. I have it on my Xbox. Horizon 4 and 5 are not my favorites. I think they swayed away from what was fun in the game. But yeah, that is basically what I do. I mainly play Valorant and Paladins currently.
Yeah, I have to agree that playing with friends is like immensely fun.
Yep.
That is actually why I only that is also why I play multiplayer. It's like
Mhm.
I'm not a huge fan of them, but it's so fun that when you're with friends that like you just can't avoid it.
Yep,
Absolutely,
that's
like
true.
and
I do play these
yeah.
like AAA big story games just to see how big games are getting because the effort that they put in, even let's say Cyberpunk, it is you can at least play it once to check out how great the whole team have put their efforts in to create those assets. As an artist, I always if now what has happened.
Uh, uh,
Am
Rishi,
I?
we seem to have lost you there for a second. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's back.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
back.
not sure what happened. Yep. So I was saying I play these big games mainly because I want to observe the assets. Before Backstage Pass, I used to play games for fun. What Backstage Pass had done to me is that as an artist, if I play a game, I have to check, okay, the car asset here, they must have done this. This is how they must have optimized this. So now I look at it that way. So in a way, games have become less fun for me after Backstage Pass. But yeah, the multiplayer games I still enjoy.
Yeah, as programmers ourselves, once we see a game, we start also dissecting it ourselves.
Yeah,
So it kind of
that's
ruins
true.
the magic, but it's a sweet deal considering that we'll also be starting making games ourselves.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's like basically you can make your dream game when you are like in the gaming industry. You do not have to
Yep.
like search for like a game which is your favorite. You can just make it like, yes, I want this in a game and you can have it.
Yep, that's true. And I agree. In some way or the other, my passion or interest for tycoon games has trickled down to me making tycoon games now. Maybe if I was interested in car games so much, maybe I might be making a car game now because that is what gives you fuels you to continue to make the game. Because if you make a game that you are really not interested in, then it won't work out.
Of course, of course.
Yep.
And I think it also needs to be said that Anirudh here is also a very huge car fanatic.
Oh,
Like
that's great.
he absolutely adored the 3D models that you made of cars.
So like
Yep.
we will actually pull it up onto the screen right now. Uh, so you had sent us like all the renders that you had made, and
Mhm.
I saw all the car ones, and I absolutely nerded about it. I went absolutely crazy for them. I was like, oh my god, these are absolutely amazing. These are made by someone who was in our college. Like,
Thank you so much.
that's the absolutely mind blowing part of it.
I can confirm. I've seen him like really enjoy the renders.
Yep. But I also do want to add that that when I haven't updated my portfolio in a while, I think those posts are 2 years ago, and I haven't had much use with ArtStation, so I haven't updated it lately. But because people might be there might be a lot of people here who are pursuing art currently, and who want to get into environment art or 3D modeling. So I don't think they should take that as reference because that is one of my early works. So technically, there is a lot missing there. It looks good in the renders, but technically there is a lot missing. But yeah, I just wanted to add that as an environment artist, after that I have learned so much in the college and when I was studying and when I was doing my job, that I learned that these technical things are very important in games. It should not just look good; it should also perform well.
Like so we have actually pulled up the pictures right now, and like when I saw the textures of this car, I was absolutely mind blown. I was like, oh my god, this is absolutely amazing.
Yep. So you might know that is a Nissan GTR,
Yeah, it's a
and
1969 Nissan GTR.
yep. So this is based on a concept artist that I forget the name of, but he made this concept about having a twin turbo Nissan GTR. So I thought it was the concept art looked great, so I did my best to mimic the thing. And I think the concept art he named it as Shuriken, which is
Ah, okay,
the
okay.
yeah. So it has a Shuriken in the near the bonnet stuck to it.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I thought it had a great story, and since Shuriken is Japanese and Nissan is also Japanese, I thought it fit in well.
So like this picture, I was like, okay, now this is absolutely amazing. I might actually use all of them as like my wallpapers one after the other because
Thank you so much.
they're amazing. And like also this wristwatch, I
Hmm.
love it. The attention to detail here is just amazing and mind blowing.
Yep. So this was mainly to improve my modeling skills. because at this point in Backstage Pass, this is when this was early on where we were just being taught 3D modeling. So the main focus was to model it properly, not and it's not mainly about texture. So here you can see the orange is just orange. It does not have any grunge or scratches or anything on it. So it's just basic orange color. So the focus on this was how many different shapes that we can create. So you have the gears and different shape models that we've learned a lot while modeling this. And yeah, so this was basically mainly for modeling. And the car as well was a good modeling practice where when we go into detail, everything has to fit in well in 3D. So you cannot just fake it always. So if I put a turbo on an engine, it has to be exactly where it is in real life. So yeah, all these things teach you a lot. And like as a 3D artist, these modeling practices are very important early on. And then after that, you can continue into optimizing it and then learning texturing and then optimizing texturing. And then you can go into the specific engine you want to use and figure out how this fits in there.
I think we can go to our next question, which is
Yeah.
why did you get into the gaming industry?
So I was a traditional artist before I joined Backstage Pass. Um, Even though I think I was pretty good at studies, but I used to take art classes. So I used to go from my school and during my 11th and 12th, and then for 3 hours I used to go to an art class where I learned traditional art. Painting and such. So I was till my ninth class, I was always focused on okay, how can I be an artist? What are the careers for an artist? So as a traditional artist, you career aspects are kind of slim, where the main successful artists you see are independent artists, and they have made their brand, and that is how they market. So the artwork might take maybe 2 3 months to make, but the real value comes from the brand. So that is what I was thinking is I wanted to be an independent artist. And in my ninth class, I then realized that there's this whole industry for games. Because till then I was only focused on playing games. I never thought what will happen if I need to make it.
Right.
So yeah, and when at that I so and at that point I participated in a game jam. So currently, you must be aware of IGDC.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so at that point, I think it was 2014. It was called NGD.
Mhm.
So that was my first foray into gaming, and I participated in the NGDC game jam, and I knew nothing. I knew nothing about anything. So I learned Unity in the 1 week. It was a 1 week game jam. So I learned that there's a software called Unity, and then I learned Unity in that 1 week.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just figured out basic JavaScript. I'm not a programmer, I would say, but it was just tutorials and brackeys and etc. So I figured out a game and I somehow executed it in that 1 week, and I went on to win the game jam. So that there gave me the confidence that and a push into the gaming industry. So then my second thought was okay, I'm an artist and I want to get into the gaming industry. So what should my career be? And again, firstly, I thought I'll be a concept artist because I was doing traditional art, I was painting. So concept artist was a good fit for me. And that was my thought even when I joined Backstage Pass. But during my second year, then I explored 3D art, and I thought, okay, no, 3D art is for me. And that is when I started studying and improving my skills in 3D art.
That is a very good story. I like it very much.
Sure, like
Thank you.
Rakis helped out so many people. Like
Yep.
the amount, like
uh,
even we, like when we started getting into programming,
mhm.
we're using Rakis as like a tutorial.
Yep. I think
Great way.
everyone does in the gaming industry. Everyone knows Brakis, and obviously it's unfortunate that he's not active now. But I
Yeah.
think the community is still active, and whatever you do, you will still go back to his older videos.
Yeah.
If you are if you are starting off as a game developer, you must have seen at least one video from Brackies about something or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this we have to know because like COVID kind of got in the way of our college life, so that
Mhm.
kind of took a lot of the fun away of college. But we want to know what is your best experience in BSP.
Yep. So even me, my last 1.5 year, even I lost it to COVID. Even I did not step foot in the college at all. Um, but prior to that, what I remember fondly is any game jam. So it could be global game jam or any other game jam that the college is hosting. Those were the the most fun experiences that I have had at Backstage Pass, because we would have a group of friends, and it would be a 48-hour game jam. So that means creating a game in 2 days is extremely challenging, and
Yeah.
It
creating
is,
a
it is.
game which with working mechanics and somewhat of a polish is close to impossible. But me and a few of my friends, we used to be like, okay, let's do it. Let's participate in the game jam. And when college hosts those game jam, we can stay in the college itself.
Mhm.
So let's say it starts at 4 o'clock today, then the whole night we spend in college. So in the day, the classrooms that we used to study in, we are currently sleeping in the classroom. So I think that I will always remember. And there have been so many fun things that I don't think I can mention here, but there are so many fun experiences that I've had at the college, and mostly during these game jams. And so initially, I could also see the progress over 2 years. I could also see
Mhm.
the progress of me and my. So I used to have the same gang. I used to have two programmers and me and another artist.
Okay.
So as four people at the starting, we made a really bad game. We made a game in a way that it could not even be demonstrated. So at the end of 48 hours, we would be asked to give a presentation of the game that you've made. So the first game jam that we participated in, even though we made somewhat of a okay game, the build was not ready, and we could
Mhm.
not demonstrate anything. So it was a massive disappointment. You woke up for 2 days and almost stayed away for 24 hours non-stop, and now you don't even have anything to show. So it was a massive disappointment the first time, but the second and the third time we created a game that we were truly proud of,
Mhm.
and we got into the zone of because we learned so much over those 2 years that we could use. And in the 48 hours we were able to build a game and then showcase it, and even while showcasing, everyone appreciating your game that you made in 2 days gives you a lot of confidence that I can do this. So yeah, that is what I very fondly remember during my experience in Baxis or other game jams.
I've always been kind of well, I don't want to say scared, but I've always avoided game jams. It's like, okay, can I make this in 48 hours? Like, will I stand up to the pressure? It is always something on the back of my mind. But hearing that, I kind of want to participate in one now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
So I think you should go go with the mindset that you cannot make it, but you will try your best, because it is, I'm not going to lie, it is almost impossible to make a proper game in 2 days. Even just a single level, it is extremely difficult, and especially at that point where you don't have all the knowledge you will have. So maybe after 4 years it would be a little bit easier for you. After you graduate, it will be easier. You will be like, "Arey, 48 hours is okay. I can make a game in 48 hours." But in your first or second year, there's you don't even know how you'll execute it. But I think, and another thing that I would like to add is all the people I've met there are the people that I'm currently working with now. So those game jams help me not just figure out how to make games, but also find people that I can actually make those games with, that I can stay with them, because you'll have tens of friends in your college, but finding a guy who will stay with you through a whole project is also difficult, because people have their own way of working and their own workflow, and all of this has to match for a game to be produced. So in those 48 hours, you are not just figuring out how to make the game, you're also figuring out if you both can actually work together in the future.
So, like from the starting of a college, whenever we meet a gaming mentor who teaches us like different things about game design or like game programming or like the
Mhm.
basics of game art, the teachers always used to say like, look at your people in the class, and these are the
Mhm.
people you'll be working with. They're your
Yep.
colleagues, and they might also be your competition.
Yep, that's true. And yeah, I also feel that you should look at all your friends the same way, as if they are your colleagues. Competition is always going to be there, but you should look at them as your colleagues, because you will learn more from them as well. Like how, if your lecturer is going to teach you 60% of what is going to be, let's say, game art, you're going to learn 40% from the other guy, because he's so interested in game art that he's going to figure out things on the internet. This is the best way to do it, and he's going to showcase it in his portfolio, and you will look at his portfolio and be like, why can't I do it? If he's in the same class, so if he can do it, I also want to do the same thing. And then you'll go and ask him, how did you do it? And then you learn things from there as well. So yeah, I feel like you should always look at your friends as colleagues, and as partners in creating a whole portfolio, because your portfolio, I feel, is being contributed by your friends and your lecturers as well.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I have a solo project in my portfolio. Like everything
Yeah.
has been a team effort so until now.
Yeah.
Even like mine too. Like I've always worked with friends. Like mostly I'm learning a lot of stuff. Like when you do stuff, when you're actually
Hmm.
doing a game, you learn a lot about it, and mostly from
Yeah.
your friends. Like
Yeah.
the more
That's true.
complex stuff is helped out by the mentor, but
Yeah.
like all the basics and everything, like the friends help out a lot.
Yep. And the whole process of game making in general cannot be done by, I mean, obviously there are talented people, talented one man team that can, finish a whole project on their own. They do everything, art, programming, sound. But usually in general, game making is a team effort always. So learning that from the college time itself and getting into the zone that whatever I contribute has to be part of a team. It cannot just be I will do my thing and the game will miraculously work. It has to be, okay, I will do my thing, my friend is going to do his thing, and then we both have to merge this, and it has to work seamlessly. So I think learning that right from your first year, while you're creating your portfolio or any of the projects that you're working on, I think that is the best outlook.
Yeah. So I think we can go to the next question with that.
Yep.
So where did your journey in the game, like where did you start your journey in the gaming industry?
So I did my 4 year art degree at Backstage Pass, and when I was in my third year, I found a job in Sumo Digital, Pune, um, and I found a job in Sumo, and COVID also hit the same year.
Ah,
So I was not able to go to the office,
mhm.
but they offered me a remote job. So I worked there for 1 year, and during that year, I knew the things that I thought I knew at college, were obviously things about how I could, let's say, use a tool or a software. And the portfolio that I've created was showcasing my expertise in using this tool. When I reached Sumo, all these things that I was talking about previously kicked in. How do you work with a team? How is your manager going to, communicate with you? How do you communicate with your manager? What are your daily tasks and all of this? So all of these things, obviously in college, you might be doing it, but there it becomes very real. If you don't do it, you are actually, lying the whole project down. So when that kicks in, you work really hard. It can be any job. You work really hard. At your college, you don't have that much of a motivation. Let's say you don't do it. If you're working on a personal project and you don't meet a deadline, it's okay. It's your project, right? Who's going
Yeah.
to criticize you? But at a job, there will be always a guy who's going to criticize you. So in that way, I have learned immensely at Sumo. My experience at Sumo has been extremely great. Um, I should not have even a single reason to leave my job, even though I did. But I would, suggest everyone to right after college to at least work for 1 or 2 years. So it can be programming or art or any discipline that you choose. But working at a company, at a big company, helps you in understanding the structure so
Yeah.
that you can work more efficiently. You might be working well now, you might be working well to create your portfolio, but in a company you have to work efficiently. It's not just taking, you cannot create one asset in 1 week. You have to create one asset in 1 day. So how do you do that? How do you optimize your own workflow? So all of this happened, and so I arrived after college. I joined Sumo. I stayed there for 1 year, learned a lot there. Um, and then I kind of always had this bug of being independent. Like I said, even when I was previously as a traditional artist, I always used to think my career would be independent. I would just be an independent artist, having my own brand, or that was the outlook I had on my career. And so I still had that even though I came into the gaming industry, I still wanted to be independent. It's not that there's nothing wrong with the job. Um, it's just I wanted to be independent. So then I felt, after 1 year at Sumo, I felt I learned enough to be going out on my own. So then I quit and I started this with my friend who I met at Baxis Pasai, the game jam friend that I was talking about. So he is a programmer, um, and we both together started Gigantrix Games.
Oh, that end there kind of perfectly tied into the question that we were about to ask you next. Your inspiration to start your own company.
Yep.
But yeah.
So yeah, so that was primarily my focus, was to be independent. No matter, even before going to the job, I had that outlook that I'm going to the job to learn, not to earn money. I learn there for a year or two till I feel comfortable. Then I will exit and then earn money from the skills that I've learned there. So yeah, and in a way, obviously, like everyone does not, might not be fortunate enough to be doing this because your family, there are a lot of things that affect this. Not everyone can just go and say, I'm quitting my job today and I'm going to go and start my own company. Especially at 22 years old, I, if even if my family heard this, they would smack me in the head. But I convinced them that I have learned this and this, and this is the reason why I want to start a company. It's not just I don't like it here, that is why I'm going to start my company. So yeah, so I had to structure a lot of things and plan a lot of things ahead, before even doing them, and that has allowed me to be independent now.
Like
A
that,
really inspiring story.
yeah, like I think most of us like had like a real hard time trying to convince our parents even to join a gaming college. Like,
Yeah.
like when you actually find out that there's actually like you can learn making games and you can
Yep.
like I think for most of us it's like, yeah, I love playing games. I absolutely love like playing games. I love watching this. And like when you find out about it and when you tell your parents, it's like, really? You want to do that? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Like make a little more harsher than that? But like
Yep.
once you actually get into it, it's like so much fun. And
Yep.
I think they are also like quite happy with it because you are having fun. Like you are doing like your job and you're studying well and you're doing something that you like.
Yep.
So
I mean,
maybe
that's
they
true
might,
because yeah,
yeah,
because since gaming is a thing that maybe might not every one of your parents might not understand because it's not the generic way to do it. Everyone knows engineering, so they are more comfortable with their son or daughter getting into engineering. So yeah, I totally agree that it is difficult to maybe convince your parents to do a lot of things. In when especially when you're choosing gaming, or let's say you want to go independent. But then even though my parents are supportive, there will obviously be exceptions where they feel it is more safer to stay in a job rather than going out on a business. No matter how much of you know uh, you show that you will learn this much, or how much you convince them, there'll always be the doubt that what if the business does not work out, then what? So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Although it is a valid concern, I think it's safe to say that our parents were skeptical also when we introduced
Mm.
them to this college. But once we managed to convince them, and once they saw us actually
Yeah.
how interested we are
Yeah.
in what we are going to be doing, it was an easy choice for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And like you said that you had like left your like at working at Sumo and started your own company. Even that, it would be like a huge task for anyone to convince their parents. Like
Yep.
considering like you are only 22, so you're technically still a kid. Uh, like so you still talk to your parents every day. You still live with them. At least most of us do.
Yep.
Or like some of us do live up like from we are from other places, so we'll do live
Hmm.
apart. But even then, you still talk to your parents every day, and you have to convince them. Like,
Yep.
yes, I'm
Yep.
doing this next, because
Yep.
technically they are your mentors.
Yep. And yeah, like for sure, there was a lot of friction from my parents and my friends also when I said, I'm thinking about leaving Sumo, because a lot of my friends who are working at other companies are like, are you mad? Why are you leaving Sumo? It is such a great place to work. So yeah, that was there. And even with my parents, again, like after that initial convincing, I never looked back. They also never looked back. They never, came up to me thinking, if you would have done a job, it would have been better or something like that. But like you said, I'm still 22. Um, Even though I obviously manage my business on my own, I still go about giving weekly updates to my dad, just so he feels it that okay, he's making this much money, or he's doing this, he is working on these projects, so that even he has a update all every week. So I do that, just to keep it safe.
So like that was like a quite a big question, quite serious. So let's take a step back, and I want to ask you, what is your favorite tool?
Mm. So I, as an artist, obviously there are a lot of tools that we use, especially in 3D art. To create a single asset, you cannot just create it in one tool. Obviously tools like Blender integrate a lot of external tools into it, but in general you at least have to work on 2 or 3 tools to create a complete asset. So I don't have a favorite tool as such, but I prefer and enjoy working in Maya. Um, I know a lot of my friends use Blender, and I know how versatile it is. But there's something about Maya that has like stuck with me. Um, and even now I use Maya, and the issue with Maya is that it is good at specialized things. So if you learn modeling in Maya, then it's great for you. If you learned animation in Maya, then it's great for you. I don't think you cannot sculpt well in Maya. You cannot tech. There's no point in texturing in Maya. So there are a lot of things, things that you have to compromise on when you're using Maya. But I don't know, for some reason I still stuck to it. So Maya, I would say, is my favorite tool. But during the course of game making, also there are a lot of tools that we use. So like for art or for programming or design or sound design, a lot of things that we use. So in that sense, maybe I prefer Unity, or engine wise, I prefer Unity because that is what we as a company use. But yeah, I would say Maya and Unity are my preferred tools.
I almost felt bad when I included that in the questions that we're gonna ask you today, because even us, we jump between 4 or 5 different softwares on a daily basis,
Yep.
and it's like,
Yep.
oh, pick one, but they're all so important to what we're doing.
Yeah, that's true. And there'll always be a better tool available in some time or the other. So even Maya was the king before for modeling and animation. But obviously, people have been moving into Blender now because it's free, it's open source, there's a lot of plugins for it. And in a way, Blender really makes the workflow easier of creating a 3D asset because everything is in the software itself. You don't have to switch between softwares. So yeah, so there'll always be something new to learn. Um, so I again always try to learn Blender because especially if I have to lead an art team where I have multiple people using uh, for 3D modeling, they might be using different tools, and even in 2D art, they might be using different tools. Not everyone uses Photoshop. They have their own preference, like I have for Maya. So in that sense, I have to, since I have to keep a track of everything, I learn everything, but I just don't work on it, personally. But I learn everything so that I know exactly what everyone is doing in my team.
Yeah, it's always we always get interesting answers when we ask, okay, what tools do you use? Because there are just so many amazing tools out there. But we're
Yeah.
also kind of we pick some ones, like we pick ones that we see are good, like we try them out and we stick with some
Yep.
of them.
Yep. And I think when you get really comfortable with the tools like Maya are not easy to learn. Uh, the backs like colleges like Backstreet Pass teach Maya for like 6 months, so it's not something that you can just see today and learn it tomorrow. So in that sense, also when you get really comfortable with something, you don't want to leave it because you spend so much time on it. Just abandoning it would not feel that great. So I guess in that way also I like Maya because of the fact that I've been using it for 2 3 years, so that's why I stick to it.
I think we can go to the next question now.
Mhm.
Okay, and well, we want to ask you, what is your what is the game that you're really proud of that you?
So when I was in the college, during my course, me and my programmer friend, we created a lot of small games when we did not know how to make games. So it was just us testing out something. We would play some game and then be like, we also want to make something like it. So there was a beat racing game, I think, where the car was matching the beat. It is
Huh?
like the piano tile game, but it was with a
Ah,
car.
okay.
So we played that, and me and my friend were so fascinated by it. So we thought we'll also create it. So we created a game by using some of our like favorite songs, some like EDM songs. I don't remember now, but we put that song in it, and then we created sort of an algorithm where it can match the level matches the beat of the song. And then at that time we had high hopes that we'd put it on a Play Store and people will download it, will get famous, etc., etc. But then we realized you're using someone else's song. You cannot just put it in a place. So I that game is close to my heart, but my favorite game would always be the first game that our studio made, which is Idle Cruise Ship Tycoon. Mainly because of the fact that, as I mentioned previously, tycoon games were my favorite when I was growing up. So when I wanted to make my own tycoon game, obviously it'll be my favorite. So and even during the process of making Cruise Ship Tycoon, um, so Cruise Ship Tycoon is a game where you manage your own cruise ship. So you can add attractions on it, and you see your visitors' reactions. So you can add a restaurant, a casino, an amusement park, whatever you want, whatever you think it will be good on your cruise ship. So and me and my partner, we spent close to 6 months working solo on the project. So this was when I was still in my fourth year, and I was working at Sumo as well. So I was juggling between Sumo, college, and coming home and working on Ideal Cruise Ship Tycoon for 2 3 years at the. So at that point, even though we thought this would be our first project, and this would be our company's first project, but we still did not have any idea on Like, will we incorporate the company, or are we actually, official? Is this the studio's game? Or there was no proper project structure. Even though we tried to, at that point, I communicated with a lot of other alumni from Backstage Pass, and asking them for advice on how to actually start a project, because obviously at Sumo they work on very, at that point in Sumo I was working on a AAA project, and maybe I was contributing 0.5% to that project, because there are so many people, the project is so big, and you never know what is happening at the top level. You only know, okay, your asset is going into this environment, and that's it. So I never had an idea of the full pipeline on, how do you plan a game, what do you prepare for, and then how do you execute. So at that point, I contacted a few of our alumni, tried to get in touch with them, and discuss these things on how do you plan a game. So again, fortunately, a lot of our alumni are open to talk. They, you know, if you contact them, they'll be like, okay, fine, I'll help you out. Even though they are busy themselves, they'll just take out half an hour, 1 hour a week, and help you out with things you want to know. So that way, me and my partner, we started Cruise Ship Tycoon. We created a proper GDD, a game design document, and it was not something. It was very different from what we were doing previously, because now we wanted to do it the right way, so that we could get a publisher. So yeah, so we worked 6 months. It was a two-man team. He was the programmer, I was the artist. I was doing everything, 3D art, 2D art, whatever it is. So then after 6 months, we realized we took too much for two people to make. So then we decided, and in 6 months, we were also able to create a prototype that was demonstrable. And it was easy for people to see the quality that the game was being built with. So then with that response, we thought, okay, fine, you know what, let's actually invest money into this, and finish the project properly, and not just a two people team. So that is when the whole thing started. When we were investing money, we thought, so we should structure it properly. Then the studio came about, we registered the studio, and then we found an artist and a programmer to help us out, and we finished our project in 8 months. And the the funny part, or I would say the best part, is the Beat Racer game that I was talking about. The publisher that published that game, uh, we were able to work with them because of Idle Cruise Ship Tycoon. So it came full circle, where
Yeah.
so we were obviously, Cruise Ship Tycoon, when we pitched it to publishers, uh, we had 2 3 publishers that we could choose from. It was not a publisher saying, okay, I'll publish your game. It was multiple publishers saying, give us your game. So we were very lucky with that. After we chose the publisher, then Cruise Ship Tycoon opened a lot of opportunities for us, because the quality with that the game has been made with, it is on par with other Tycoon games for mobile. So because of that, we were approached by a lot of other publishers, and one of them was a publisher for the Beat Racer game. So yeah, it has that game is always close to my heart.
Oh wow, that was great. Like there were this the end to the story was really satisfying.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Like you went like a whole circle. Like the first game that you literally told us about, you're like, we like this game, but I couldn't publish it. And
Yep.
the publishers of the game, like literally coming to you and like wanting your game. Like,
Yep.
wow. That's like
I,
amazing.
yep. I know. And yeah, I think we've learned so much in those 8 months, as a business and as an artist, and even as a programmer. Um, I don't like, even if you work at a company, even at a very high level, let's say you are the producer there or the creative director there, even at that point, you might not learn all the skills that we have learned in those 8 months, because you need to do everything on your own, because it's either your time or your money. So that is the only thing that you are balancing. For, will you be spending your own time on something, or will you spend your own money or something? So yeah, So yeah, that game is always my favorite.
Question that I want to ask you is technically not in this that we wanted, but it kind of came to me when you were telling your story about the studio. Like
Mhm.
Gigantrix Games is there's something like really cool about their name. Do you have a story behind it?
The name, I don't think personally, I don't think it's that cool. So what we have realized is when we were making Cruise Ship Tycoon initially, we had a name for our studio. Um, and we thought, we'll just register the studio in that name and it'll all work out. Little did we know that is not that easy. You cannot just come up with a name and register it and done. So when we actually went through the process of registering the studio, um, again, you learn a lot. You have to talk to your CA. You have to learn what kind of firm you want to create, because there are a lot of things that you can do while creating your first studio. Um, so after you talk to your CA and figure out what actually you want to do, then you can go ahead and register it. So initially, the name that we took and registered it, uh, we did not do our due research on it. So because of that, there was already a very famous app with the same name, which we did not
Oh,
know about, but there was a very famous app with that name. So then they contacted us saying, how can you take our name and because it's on the internet, we had a website and all. So then obviously at that point you cannot compete and go into a court case and be like, I want this name, so I'll fight with you. So that was not realistic at all at that time. So we just left the name, and after that we thought we'll come up with a name that nobody can think of or nobody has ever used it before. It can be as weird as possible, but we just don't want any problems. That was our main intention behind it. So Gigantrix, so we were trying to come up with a made up word just because of the fact that any normal English word, if you search on Google, you would find some result or the other for it. It can be a definition or it can be something comes up. But yeah, so when we were like thinking about a word that we thought it should not even come up on Google, it should say no results. Then then we won't have any problems at all. So Gigantrix, I think, has a result, but it's just very few results. I think it was some comic character or something, I guess, before. But it was a very old character. So yeah, so we don't have any issues with the name. That is the reason we came up with it. It is not my first choice or my favorite, the name, but it's just safe.
that kind of segues me probably into the next question. What are the other problems that you had while making your own company? Like some logistical problems that you did not foresee,
Yeah.
or anything that you just had to prepare yourself for?
Yep.
Any
So
tips
to
for the
anyone,
entrepreneurs?
yeah. So to anyone starting a business, the mindset should always be the whole process of running a business is you solving problems. It can be a problem on the business side. It can be a problem, let's say in games. It can be a problem with a teammate, or it can be a problem with the project manager, or it can be a problem with the publisher. It's always solving problems. So challenges are always there. Um, I would say a few of the challenges would initially be if you're starting off now and you want a studio, let's say after you graduate you want to set up a studio. Firstly, I would say right after you graduate, don't set up your studio. It doesn't make sense because you might think you know everything, maybe on YouTube or maybe like from seminars like this you might think, okay, I know what is going to happen, but till you experience it, it is very difficult to comprehend. So I would always say at least work for 1 year. uh, and if you are able to get a chance to work at a bigger company, it is always better because they have the structure properly. Smaller companies might only have 3 4 people and they might not have those structures properly, and multiple people might be doing multiple things. So I would advise against that. But if you are fortunate enough and if you are able to get a job at a big company, take it, work for 1 year. Even if you want to start a business, work for 1 year for sure. And after that, I would say you should think about what your what's your strong point. So as an artist, I know I can handle everything art and maybe a little programming because of my previous experience with making games on my own. But I cannot handle a team of programmers. Uh, I know what I want, but I don't know if what they're doing is right. So the end product might match, but the workflow might not. So that is the reason why I chose to start this with a partner, because his expertise is programming, and in that way we both complement each other, and it can help out a lot. So the first step would be, do you want a partner or not? I think in most cases it is always advantageous to have a founding partner with a different skill. So two artists might not be that beneficial, but a different skill partner will always help out. And once that is done, then you should think about what your first project should be. So initially, again, I would suggest going with mobile games, just because of the fact that the scope is smaller. Obviously there will always be your dream game that you want to make, and like this, whatever games that you're playing and inspired from that, you might have a dream game, but you should always think a business is a business. So your dream game might not be the dream for everyone else. It is just a dream for you. So you should be grounded and think about what the market wants, and decide on a game that'll work for the market. It might not be what you want to make. It might not be what you would play, but it has an audience outside of your gang or gang of friends. So you should look at that. You should look at what projects you want to work on. Do your research. And we again, Tycoon Games, we was somewhat of a coincidence, because when we were researching, we felt during our time, I mean a year and a half back, idle games were very popular on mobile. So that is the only reason we went with this. If let's say some other genre was popular, we would not have created Cruise Ship Tycoon. So the intention was not that I used to play Tycoon games and that is the reason I want to make Tycoon games. It just coincidentally matched. The intention was, let's figure out what is going to run in the market and invest in that. So that would be your second or third step. And once you figure that out, then you would figure out, like I did, could you make it on your own? And in most cases, unless you're making hyper casual games, you cannot make it on your own. You will need team or contractors or freelancers to work with. So then you will need to figure out what is the best way to structure your team. Again, it would be very, let's say you and your partner have figured out a way to get an investment. Let's say you got an investment of 1 lakh rupees. It will be very tempting to say, I have an office here, right? And I have a team of people here. But that would give a lot of expenses to things that you don't need. You don't need an office. You don't need multiple people working at the same place. And an office would be rent, electricity, a lot of things. So in that case, starting off, it is always better to go with a lean structure where you get people to work with you remotely. And after COVID, it has become the norm now. Anyone can work remotely. Before COVID, it was still difficult. If I want to work with a freelancer also, it was still a little bit weird if you are working remotely. But now, it's the standard. So I think that is a big advantage. Even now, we have a team of 20 people, and even though I have met only half of them, but everyone works remotely. So that way, there is immense flexibility with a lot of things. It's about their comfort, their working hour, how many hours they can work, and overall, we have seen a huge boost in quality. So initially, the people that we were working with were from Hyderabad. We were trying to somehow get everyone together, maybe at my house or just get it together. But then I felt it was not needed. Just let people work where they are comfortable from. So that way it has helped us out a lot. So even though now we are a 20 people team, everyone is remote and everything can be handled smoothly. So you don't need to, I don't need to think about an office till maybe I have a 50% team or a 60% team. So I don't see the need for that at all. At least it's for mobile and casual and hyper casual games. Maybe in AAA games there is the need to communicate personally with a person, because the game itself is so huge that these small communication and interactions will affect the quality of the game. But for mobile games, remote teams are can be worked with. So I would say then you structure your team, and once this whole thing is done, you should probably have a project that can be executed properly, because now you have a proper team, you have a proper plan, you have a proper game idea. And another thing to add to the game idea is that I see a lot of people who have a lot of good ideas. I think you might have heard it at other say with other people also saying this, but ideas are worthless to keep it. Yeah, so the ideas are always worthless, and game ideas, because the problem with games is not coming up with a great idea. It is about how do you execute that idea. So anyone or everyone can just sit down and come up with a game idea, but not everyone can execute that into a proper game. So especially in mobile games, we create per month 10 games and 10 prototypes. So that means we are coming up with 10 ideas every month, and there is a 5% chance that a game would get published or scaled. So maybe because in some cases even getting to 50,000 or 1 lakh downloads is not enough. You need to scale higher than that. So getting to 1 million or 5 million downloads is usually when you can say that your game is a hit. So out of that would mean out of 100 games that you make, out of 100 prototypes that you make, there is a chance of 5 games to be those hits. Obviously, those hits will give you a lot of money and a lot of freedom to make other games, but the mentality is that you ideas are there to just test. They are not just, you should not stick with an idea just because you like it. So you should always be ready to scrap any idea, how much ever great the idea may be. If the market does not like it, you just scrap it. So yeah, so I was saying, when you execute an idea with the team that you've created, then the next step would be for mobile games. You could go with two routes. Initially, only you can contact a publisher and get them to work with you from the start. So you can pitch them your idea and you can say, I have a team of so and so, and we are all talented, and our expertise is in this. And if you are able to convince, like you convince your parents, if you are able to convince a publisher that he can give you money and effort to execute your game, that would be great. But those usually happen, that kind of structure usually happens in indie games and very high scope mobile games. So your regular puzzle game or a simple puzzle game might not have this opportunity. So you will need to show a big scope, and only then the publisher will also get in with you, because he is there to make money with the game. So even though that route is there, initially it might not be available to you. So what you would be doing is you would create a game and then go to the publisher. So here you're losing that first 6. If the game does not work out, you lost everything. You lost the money you put in and you lost the time you put in. But since you are such a small developer, you have to prove your game first, and only then you can go and talk to a publisher. So which is what we also did. We created Cruise Ship Tycoon, then approached publishers, and if the game is good, obviously people will be lining up to publish it, because everyone wants to make money. Nobody, in a sense, in mobile games, nobody is here to play a good game. Every, at least on the developer and on this side of the page, everyone is here to make money and scale the game as much as possible. So in that case, features that you might not like will have to be added to the game, because that is how you make money. uh, I say this because when we play games, especially if you play PC games, the main one of the main things is that you don't have ads or any of the interruptions in between. And mobile games, obviously, if you are playing, I don't think you would play a mobile game with your internet on. If you have the option, you would turn off the internet and then play that game.
Yeah.
But as a developer, you have to think that that is how you are even able to make money or monetize it. So yeah, obviously, as a player, you might not like it, but as a developer, it is what you have to do. So yeah, so once you get a publisher, usually what happens is for mobile games, they test your game in the market, and if you succeed those tests, then you can go and scale the game. Um, Usually, like I said, a game passing a test depends on a lot of different attributes. So all of those things have to come together and work, and only then it can succeed. So making a game, I would say, is only 60% of the whole process. After that, how do you market a game? And so a publisher is there to help you market your game. For those who don't know, you might. So initially, everyone's thinking would be I make a game and then it would work. I would put it on Steam or Play Store or wherever, and people will just play it. So, but the reality is that is not what happens. A game has to be marketed because there are millions of games and thousands of games similar to your game. So, for a player to choose your specific game and invest his time into it uh, requires a lot of pushing. So, you have to push the game into the player's face that, there is this game here, play it. And only then he will maybe download it. So, all of this marketing as a small developer, you cannot do it on your own because that requires substantial capital to for you to invest and run these like big ad campaigns. So that is the reason you're choosing to go with a publisher. So a publisher is there to help you with this capital. So he has the money to promote your game, and you obviously don't have the money to promote your game. So for for your collaboration, what they usually do is they take a cut out of the profit since you're putting the money in. So it usually is 50-50. But I think currently the market trend for mobile games is becoming 60-40. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went 70-30 also. And it's 60-40 in the publisher's favor. So you get
Yeah.
40%. Yeah. So even though
Okay.
you made the game, you get 40% of the revenue. So these things are there, which again hits you as a big reality check because you make the game and then you go to a publisher and then you realize, what, I'm only going to get 40%. I put in 8 months into this game. This publisher is just here to test it for 1 week. And if it works, he's going to take 40% or 60%. So all of the, but these are what happens in the gaming industry. So you have to be aware of it and then plan accordingly. So yeah, once you get the publisher, you again have two scenarios. Either the game gets successfully tested, then everyone is happy, you make money, publisher makes money. Most of the time, the game does not succeed the test. So at that point, there is nothing you can do to force the game to succeed. It always depends on maybe the trend has changed and then maybe it succeeded, but there is nothing you can do. So that again, you have to realize that if a publisher says that this game cannot work, maybe you can take a second opinion from another publisher. But if he also says that it cannot work, then you cannot do anything. You have to let go of all the 8 months or how much ever time that you put in. You have to let go and just scrap the game. And games are made in a way that you cannot just sell off the assets or something like that. So in a way, it is very difficult to scrap games. So especially if you're working on it for a long period of time and you invested money into it. So in that sense, initially as a developer, hyper casual games are easier because hyper casual games will only take 15 to 20 days to build. You're not even expected to spend more time than that because it is a waste of time to polish a hyper casual game. So all you're creating is just a playable prototype. It only needs 10 minutes of gameplay. Once you create this prototype, you repeat the same process. You approach the publisher, you test this prototype and all that, but you have very less to lose in this process of a hyper casual game. Because a game like Cruise Ship Tycoon, you might spend 8 months, you might spend 3 lakhs on it, and then go to a publisher. If he says no, you lost your money and your 8 months worth of time. So sometimes time also you don't take into account easily, but you have to take into account that if you work for 8 months, you have to give yourself a salary, or you have to take your worth as well. So that also adds up. And comparatively, a hyper casual game you only worked on for 20 days, and the money you put in also will be substantially less. So then, if a publisher scraps it, it is easier to let go. So yeah, so that is usually what happens. And uh, I think I covered most of the challenges and the main process of creating casual or hyper casual games. But yeah, so if anyone has any like specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But this should be the overview of what actually happens.
That's actually great. That covered a lot of grounds that I had. Like when you initially were speaking about the difficulties in your company, I was like, okay, what about this? Then you already answered it in the next slide. So I think you have covered a lot of ground there. Uh, Now for a question that one of the people asked, and was it like, so now that you own a company, uh, when you're interviewing an artist, what are you looking for in them?
So if I'm looking for a 3D artist, then I look at an asset that they've created, and I look for things about so I look for a proper workflow. So the end render, like I said, like my car might look good, and the end render might look good, but there is nothing in that page that you can see on how I made it, and what are, like, let's say the try count or the texture size or etc. There is nothing, no information on that. So if I were to look at a project or an asset made by 3D artist, I would need information on all of this, because I can compromise the look of the car for it to work well seamlessly in my game. I might always not want a super high quality asset, but I need a working asset. So that would be my main focus. I look at the workflow that the artist used to create that asset. So it would need to be right on every aspect, from modeling to texturing to optimizing. And then the render is just a bonus, that it's just a good way to look at the asset. But in that case also, even in a render, I look at where are the renders actually from. If it is from an engine, then you know that this asset can be directly put into an engine. If it is from a software, or if it's a rendering software, then there I would be a little bit skeptical, because it makes your asset look good. The whole
Yeah.
point of the rendering software is you can set up your lighting properly, and you can make it look a little bit more realistic than the asset quality might be. So in that sense, I always look for industry workflows, um, and how well an asset can work in a real game. But if it's about 2D art, then I look at their portfolio, and mostly it's about, for me it is about, if I'm searching for a for talent, it would usually be about for a specific project.
Mhm.
So I look at if they if are they a right fit for that project. So is the art style similar, etc.
Oh, and by the way, people who are also listening on the Discord chat, we are now taking questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, do post them in the chat, either on YouTube or on Discord. Right now, we only have one question that Anirudh just asked Rishi over here. Yeah, I see someone else is coming in.
And like you see, like I'm also a big, as we said, I was a big car guy. So like I think if I don't control myself, I'd be talking about cars with you the whole day.
Yeah, and I would love that, because I have, as a career myself, it has been difficult to find people who would, you know engage with you in a conversation about cars. Maybe you can just discuss with them about a minute or two, but then they lose interest because it's not their thing. So yeah, if you are interested in cars, I would love to get into a conversation with you and talk about cars.
Question from Ankit. What is the biggest hurdle you face when managing projects?
So initially, when the team, there was no one, it was just me and my partner. Then the hurdle was sticking to deadlines because again, it at that point it was more about personal determination that I need to finish this asset today. When we were working on Cruise Ship Tycoon initially, when we were only two people, motivation is a bit difficult. If you have to sustain for 6 months on one project, it is going to be difficult. Or after 6 months, it is very difficult to be interested in the same project and doing the same thing again and again and again. So initially, the biggest hurdle was managing myself and how do I stay motivated. But after that, when now that we work with a team, uh, I think with projects again, it is mainly about deadlines and expectations. So uh, as we make hyper casual games, it is very quick. So we have to make games in 20 days or less, and it's non-negotiable. You make the game in 20 days or less, or you just don't spend any more time on it. You just give whatever is ready.
Okay.
So, but ideally, we want the game to be, properly made even in the 20 days. So that requires a lot of communication with the publisher side or with your team. And all of this should match and come together. And that has been a big hurdle because everyone again has their own way of working. You might work on weekends, I might not work on weekends. And even smaller things like that will affect the timeline. So yeah, that is one of the biggest hurdle for me is getting like creating a coherent environment where everyone is on the same page.
I think there's still more people are asking. And yeah, it, will- I think a lot of people are loving your answers because you're like going in depth, which makes them really understand like how it actually goes on. Uh,
The advice that you gave were almost exactly the same as the advice that we received when we had our first class from an actual design in college.
Hmm.
So, like he always used to say, it's like never try to build your first project as your dream project.
Yeah,
Like more often than not, as a developer, you get really passionate about this one idea that you have, and you pour all of your time into this,
yeah,
and it ends up like it's always a good idea. It's not like the idea is bad. It's just we take on more than we can handle at that
yeah,
beginning
that's
stage.
true. And I think you should also think that, let's say you have a dream idea for a game, it would always be better if you could execute it properly. So why compromise on that? Why do you want to work with just one guy or one teammate and make it like in such a small budget? If it's a dream project, you should be able to, splurge on it and create it properly. So for that to happen, you need to make money and it needs to be disposable income for you to, put it into your dream project. So I would say till you get to that point where you are financially free and that your business can, accommodate this project that might or might not make money. So till that point, you should, keep it down. You should, even though you might have a great idea and a dream project, you should look at it as if I will make it one day. And I think in that sense, that also can be motivation where you might be doing the things that you're doing now just so that you can build a bigger project later on.
so I just had a question like if you were like scrapped an idea, you scrapped a prototype, like it might be like 2 or 3 years old, and now the market has changed. Do you
Yeah.
think you could use the same prototype again to like take it
Uh,
to publishers?
Sometimes, yes. Not exactly the same. You
Mhm.
might use parts of it and skin it a bit differently. So a car puzzle game might be skinned as a maybe a candy puzzle game. So you can do that if that is what is happening in the trend. Because usually when you pick a genre, there are a lot of themes that can be used for that genre. So let's say for idle tycoon games, cruise ship is just one thing. You can have a restaurant, you can have a theme park, you can have a zoo, a lot of things. So and again, like you said, you never know. Maybe the trend for currently with the Jurassic Park movie release, the market has everyone wants to play a dinosaur game. So if you have a game that can be maybe converted into a dinosaur game, then yeah, why not? You can definitely do that and test it out. But usually scrap games are scrap games. It is very rare to recycle a game.
Mhm.
Most probably you would just scrap it.
While we wait for the other, oh, we already have a question from. Uh, I'm not gonna. That is a username that I'd rather not say. What would you like to see in a resume for an entry level job position?
Uh, yeah. So I like I said, um, with my team, I am not always looking for people, or I cannot afford people that have 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience, or they are the market leader in that category. So as a small team and a small developer, you cannot afford those people. As talented as they may be, and you want someone like that, but it is always difficult to get them mainly because of finances. So in that sense, at an entry level, at a small studio, not just my studio, everyone is looking at how you can contribute more than your title. So if
Mhm.
it says if you are a junior developer, I am always looking for someone who can go above and beyond. And for you, it is not that great of a deal because you are getting paid for your title, but I'm expecting more work than your title. So, but usually for small studios, that is the scene. And currently, when I am able to afford it, I try to get a proper pay scale for people depending on how much they are working. But what I look for an entry level job is versatility, is how much rather than just your portfolio, what else can you contribute in my project. And if I'm looking at your portfolio, it is mostly this your workflow and how well it can fit in with my current projects.
Well, while we wait to see if there's any other questions coming in, I usually, well, to get to know someone, my first question to them is, are you watching something right now? Series are like a way that to be pastime here in the college.
Yeah.
During lunch breaks, we always watch something. Like, are you
Yep.
watching anything right now?
Not a series, but there is this comedy podcast called The Internet Said So. So there is this. He's a famous comedian. I don't know if you heard of him. There's this guy called Varun Thakur, and he hosts that podcast. So it is a 1 hour podcast, and it's really funny. It's just comedy. There are just three stand-up comedians sitting down and talking about random facts and random topics. So yeah, that is very. That is the one that I've been hooked on now. I've been binge watching all the episodes currently. But other than that, shows wise, mm, I can't seem to come up with. Yeah, I think the podcast is the only thing that I'm currently properly looking at.
Any favorites you revisit often?
I Bollywood and I mean Indian shows wise, I like The Family Man.
Uh,
Uh, yeah, I like both the seasons, and I revisit that sometimes because even if you're watching it a second time, it's just great. The actors are great, and it it's just good. It's a good show. Um, but internationally, maybe Narcos is what I sometimes revisit. Even though I watch the whole show, Sometimes I watch part of the season, but say any show, if you're watching it for the second time, you get boring because you know what is going to happen.
Yeah.
So the first time I stayed with Narcos was because I wanted to see Escobar die, but second time I know how it dies.
Hmm.
I couldn't stay with it, but I think Narcos is something that I go back to.
Hmm. So, there's a question. Like, could you suggest any artists or references to learn from?
Yeah. So for 3D art, uh, even though I don't remember, so over the past 1.5 year, my roles have moved so much from just being a 3D artist to managing a lot of things that I might not be up to date with 3D art or the popular artists currently. But I think art session is a really good place to find inspiration for any artist. Because I'm not saying it as a reference, but I also as an inspiration because you know what an artist is able to do with his time, then I'm sure you also can spend the same amount of time. And so, in that sense, you should be able to, match their quality. And I think there are a lot of great artists. For 3D art and environment art in specific, I feel like people might always be looking at assets. I mean, 3D assets. So it maybe it could be props or trees or etc etc. But another very important thing is also to look at materials, because as an environment artist, you're not just creating an asset, you're also creating tileable materials for the environment. So it can be a road, or like let's say in Forza, you see a road and grass. Those things have to be made by an artist, and they have to be tileable, and they have to have the fidelity for that specific game. So grass is not just people putting grass meshes there, because that will take up a lot of performance. So all of this, like materials, as an environment artist, I say this because I never knew this when uh, at Backstage Pass, and after I joined Sumo, then I learned that this is such a big part and of the environment artist role. So yeah, but for 3D artists, for art in general, I would say art station, I think, is a great place to get inspired from and check for references.
I just have to ask. There is a picture in your room. Is that your artwork?
This,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, this is mine. So this is when I again, before my 10th class, when I used to actually sit down and paint. So this
Mhm.
is made in acrylic. So we used to, this is from a reference. It's not
Okay.
obviously, I did not have a real lady sitting in front of me that I was painting, but this is from a reference photo. But
Mhm.
usually we work, so there's thing called still life, where you have a prop in front of you and you look at it and you paint it. So I have a lot of these around my house. So because at that point, when I used to go to art classes, and I always wanted to work on something big, not in
Mhm.
a small page. So I used to bug my art teacher that I want to work on a big canvas.
Mhm.
So but once you create a big canvas like this, then what do you do? I can't leave it at his house, the art teacher's house. So I had to get it home, and my parents, like it as well, so they just frame it and we put it around the house.
So we have our next question. It's like, do we artists have to learn game engines as well?
Yes, because again, solely for the fact that anyone who's looking to hire you is trying to see if you can fit into their workflow properly. So when, if let's say I am trying to hire you and you say you don't know Unity or Unreal, even though it is not something big, that I would reject you, but for me, I would still prefer someone who knows the engine over you. So it is always a good to have, and I think for big companies, it is more than a good to have. You should learn Unreal Engine or Unity, um, because big companies use Unreal Engine or their own proprietary engine. But I think if you learn Unity or Unreal Engine, you can easily transfer that information to other engines as well. They're not going to be drastically different. And especially as a 3D artist, you definitely need to learn Unreal Engine or this. And if you are going to render an asset, etc., it should always be in an engine, not in a.
I think that's it. Like, thank you for your time. Like, even though like I'm a programmer, I've learned a lot from you today. It's like I got a bit of a reality check on how it is. Once I finish my degree, like once I join a company, how will it be? Like, okay, I have to watch these deadlines, or like, um, yeah, I have to work on my own games. Like, how is it starting the studio, or how was it like interviewing people and all this?
Yeah,
Like, I've learned a lot, and it was quite fun.
It
yep,
really was.
likewise.
Yeah. So,
Yep, it was great to be here and share this information.
yeah,
And I hope it helped a few people.
I
I'm sure
definitely
it
think.
did.
Okay. I think with that we can close the webinar. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Rishi, for your
Uh,
time.
yep. Thank you to you too. And yeah, it was great being here. See you guys.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.